You know, the book of Acts has to be one of the most exciting stories ever told. I mean, it picks up right where the Gospels end, and boom, you've got the explosive birth of the early Christian church. We're talking miracles, riots, crazy shipwrecks, prison escapes, the whole deal. But for all that drama, it's also at the heart of this massive scholarly debate. Is it reliable history, or is it something else entirely?
All right, so let's just get right into it. The question that scholars have been wrestling with for, centuries, is this: how are we supposed to read the book of Acts? Is it a factual, eyewitness-driven account of what actually went down, or is it more like historical fiction? You know, a story that's shaped more by theology than by what really happened.
So, how does this whole debate really break down? Well, it pretty much comes down to two main camps. On one side, you've got scholars who see Acts as this amazing theological work, carefully crafted to teach a very specific message. And then on the other side, you have folks who defend it as a totally solid historical account, probably written by someone who is right there, close to the action.
So here's the thing. Even though it reads just like a gripping history, its reliability? Well, that's where the experts just can't agree. And look, this isn't just some minor academic squabble. This gets to the very heart of how the book was written, why it was written, and what its ultimate purpose really is. Okay, first up, let's explore the case for skepticism, because, there's a large and really influential group of scholars who argue that we should be super cautious about treating Acts as a straightforward historical document.
Now, this skepticism didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually has a history all its own. It started gaining real traction back in the 19th century with a group known as the Tübingen School. Their whole thing was that Acts was kind of trying to paper over some of the early conflicts in the church. But the idea really took off in the mid-20th century. You had scholars like Hans Kanzelmann and Ernst Hanschen, who basically made the case that the author wasn't really a historian, but more of a creative theologian. They even called it an edifying novel, a story where the facts really took a backseat to the message.
So the skeptical case pretty much boils down to four key arguments. First, they'll say the author's main goal was theological, not historical. Second, they argue he kind of erased his sources by rewriting everything in his own uniform style. Third, they claim all those powerful speeches we read, basically invented. And finally, and this is a big one, they point out that the Paul you meet in Acts seems, very different from the Paul we meet in his own letters.
But hey, that's just one side of the argument, right? So let's flip the coin and look at the other side. Because plenty of other scholars have mounted a really strong, really detailed defense of the historical reliability of Acts.
All right, so the first counterargument tackles a really big assumption head-on, the idea that having a theological agenda automatically makes you a bad historian. The defenders of Acts just say, hang on, that's a false choice. And when you think about it, why can't someone be motivated by their faith and also be deeply committed to accurately recording what happened? Why does it have to be one or the other?
And this is where things get really interesting, because a key piece of evidence comes in from a totally unexpected place. A guy named A.N. Sherwin-White, a top-tier classical historian of the Roman Empire, not a theologian, decided to put Acts under the microscope. And he was apparently astonished. He found that the author absolutely nailed all sorts of tiny, obscure details, like using the correct and kind of unusual title for the governor of Cyprus, or getting specific points of Roman legal procedure just right. These are exactly the kinds of things that a storyteller just making things up from a distance would almost certainly get wrong.
And what's so compelling about this is the argument that follows. Sure, a historical novelist could do their homework and research all those little details, but the accuracy in Acts feels so casual, it's so naturally woven into the fabric of the story that it doesn't feel researched. It feels like the author just knew this world. And the argument goes, if he got all these supposedly trivial background details right, doesn't it stand to reason he's probably reliable on the main events too?
And then you've got this fascinating internal clue, the famous we passages. At several points during Paul's journeys, the narration just suddenly shifts. It goes from they did this to we did this. The simplest, most natural explanation, the author himself was there, participating in these events. And when you start looking at the list of Paul's known companions, well, by process of elimination, the traditional author, Luke, starts looking like a very, very strong candidate.
All right, let's tackle one of the biggest points of disagreement in this whole debate, the speeches. All those powerful speeches that fill the pages of Acts? Peter at Pentecost, Stephen before he's martyred, Paul on Mars Hill. Are these real speeches or are they just literary inventions?
And man, the two sides could not be further apart on this. The skeptical view? They see these speeches as total literary creations, basically tools the author uses to communicate his own theology. But the defender view argues no. They're faithful summaries, based on solid tradition, of what was actually said.
And we've got to be really clear here. I mean, these speeches are incredibly short. You could read most of them out loud in just a couple of minutes. But we're told Paul once spoke until midnight. So obviously, we're dealing with summaries, not word-for-word transcripts. The real question isn't are they verbatim, it's do they accurately capture the gist of the original speech? And this is where a little historical context is absolutely key. Check out this quote from the great Greek historian Thucydides, who was writing centuries before Acts. This was the accepted practice for the best historians of the ancient world. I mean, they didn't have tape recorders, right? So you did your best to capture the essence, the main thrust of what was said. The author of Acts was simply working within this well-established historical tradition.
Okay, let's move on to the final major point of debate. And it's a big one. Does the Paul we see in the book of Acts match the Paul who speaks to us directly in his own letters?
This really brings the whole debate into sharp focus. Just look at this breakdown. On every key point, the author's goal, the speeches, the portrait of Paul, you can see the massive difference. One side sees a theological editor who is basically inventing and cleaning up the material. The other side sees a sympathetic historian who's summarizing and preserving tradition. It's a fundamental disagreement about what the author was even trying to do.
So, the million-dollar question, do we have two different Pauls? Some scholars absolutely say yes. They'll argue that the Paul in Acts is way more calm, more accommodating than the fiery, confrontational Paul we meet in his letters, like in Galatians. And look, that's been a really powerful argument for a long time. But plenty of other scholars push back hard. They argue we're just seeing the same person in different situations, and that when you really look closely, the claims of outright contradiction, they just don't hold up.
Okay, so after all this scholarly back and forth, what's the big takeaway? I mean, why does this debate about a 2,000-year-old book actually matter today?
Well, maybe the most important takeaway is this. We do the author a huge injustice if we judge him by the standards of our time, not his. He wasn't a modern journalist with a camera and a laptop trying to get a perfectly objective news report. He was an ancient historian carefully crafting a sympathetic account of events that he believed had literally changed the world, using the very best sources he could get his hands on.
And you know, no matter where you land in the historical debate, the theological and pastoral message of the book itself is incredibly powerful and crystal clear. It teaches that the essential job of the church is mission, that salvation is for all people, no discrimination, that this whole endeavor is guided and empowered by the Spirit, and that the triumph of the gospel is often achieved through suffering.
There's actually a powerful modern story that illustrates this so well. Picture this. After World War II, the German city of Kassel was just in ruins, and amid all that wreckage stood the shell of a bombed-out church. But over one of the doorways, an inscription carved in stone had somehow survived. It read, "But the word of God abides forever." You have to think the author of Acts would have really appreciated that symbolism.
Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. Is the book of Acts better understood as a precise photograph, a perfect, objective snapshot of a moment in time? Or is it maybe more like a painted portrait, one that's definitely grounded in a real historical subject, but is ultimately composed with an artist's purpose and a very particular story to tell? That's a great question to think about.